not too long ago, won some wonderful medals at the Rio Equestrian Games and the Olympics. So tell us a little bit about what you've been doing recently.
Well, we got back from Rio. It was a great experience to represent America and come home with an individual bronze medal. And so since then, the season has been still going on here in the US. So we've just finished that and ready for a break now. And here we're at Portofino in Raleigh, North Carolina, and Boyd and I are going to be doing a master class. And we've brought some horses with us, and it's going to be a fun night of hopefully education and getting people to see a little bit what we do on a day-to-day basis with our horses.
Very nice. Now tell me a little bit about your career in the Olympics. You were on the Australia Olympic team?
Yes, well, I've been very fortunate. I've been to 6 Olympic Games now, and Rio was my 6th. And so it's been an incredible journey. It's, there's nothing much better in sport than representing your country at the Olympic Games. And,
sure.
And I've actually been able to do that with 2 countries. Obviously, my country that I grew up in, and all my family is from Australia, and then also for the country that I reside in now, the USA. So.
Very nice. So what have you got your eye on for the future?
Well, I mean, you're always got to have horses in the pipeline, so I've got an exciting bunch of up-and-coming horses, and it's very exciting, especially for North Carolina, that they have the World Championships going to be here in 2018 at Tryon, which is just down the road from here. So that'll be our next big team championship, and so hopefully we can put on a good show for the home crowd.
I'm sure you will, without a doubt. Now, when you're looking for a horse to do the 3-day with, what kind of horse do you look for? Well,
he's got to be a great athlete. He's got to have a good mind. A horse that likes to be trained and likes to be worked, and they've also got to be able to gallop. So you need a thoroughbred type of horse. It doesn't necessarily have to be a thoroughbred, but something that's that can gallop and then can put up with going around across country for 4 miles. And but then also the dressage and show jumping is very important. So it's got to be a true all-round horse that's athletic and able to be trained up, because it takes a long time. You probably spend about a year at every level. So before you can get to the level of the Olympic Games, I mean, you're probably putting in 5, maybe 6 years of training. So so it's got to be a horse that is prepared to accept that kind of training.
Right. Now, of the 3 sports, which one do you enjoy doing the most?
Well, I guess the cross country is probably something that comes a bit easiest for me. The other 2 phases I've got to work pretty hard at, and that's I think why most people get into eventing, is because of the cross country, the excitement and the satisfaction of being able to get the horses to jump some of the jumps that they do, and it's pretty astounding to be able to walk up beside them and then think that your horse is going to be able to jump it. But it's really rewarding to see horses and how they get in confidence in themselves and belief in the rider, and it's a really cool feeling when it goes well.
And of the kinds of obstacles that they have on cross country, is there any one that you like the best or dread the most?
No, it depends on the horse. Some horses maybe a little hesitant at water, or some horses not as careful at ditches, or so you've got to get to know your horse and understand what kind of ride he's going to need. So.
Very, very good. Well, of all of your things that you've accomplished in your life, is there something that you're most proud of?
Well, pretty proud of my family. So we've got a good family, and they're good girls, and so I'm pleased and proud of that.
Are your kids following in your footsteps?
I got two that are riding, and one that doesn't, but she'll find her own niche, I'm sure.
Absolutely. All right.
If you're interested in a career working with horses, then Martin Community College is the place for you. MCC's Equine Technology program is the only one offered among North Carolina's 58 community colleges. The program is management-oriented with classes in breeding, nutrition, training, riding, equine health, and more. Graduates can leave MCC prepared to work in recreational and racing barns, breed to discipline-oriented farms, or assistant farm management. For more information, contact Martin Community College today.
Okay.
We're here today at Victoryland Dressage in Burgaw with Shawna Karish, and Shawna was here recently and did a clinic on positive reinforcement training. So Shawna, tell us first a little bit about you.
Okay, and this is kind of an interesting story. I, as a little kid, wasn't a horse person, and there was a reason behind it. I was abused from the time I was 3 until I was 16. So with that, when we would go to my grandfather's farm, it was a hobby farm, and we had quarter horses that were called, considered good horses. It was probably about age 6, and I started recognizing they're not really happy to see us. We have to chase them and get them, and then once we catch them, they're completely safe and good. But as a little child, I kind of, in my circumstances, I recognized we're kind of imposing ourselves on them, and it wasn't their wishes to be with us. So I didn't grasp all that in a philosophical way till I was an adult, but So I thought, you know what, I love the horses, but I'm not going to make them do anything. So my little friends were taking lessons and all, and our horses didn't have a good enough relationship with humans in general to be interested in this little girl that, wants to hang out with them. So I just kind of went on my way. So my first experiences with training animals actually happened, because I grew up loving animals. My first experience training animals actually happened when I was in college and I got a job working with marine mammals at SeaWorld in San Diego. So, and this was way back in the 80s, so not to date myself. But so I started working with them, and I was going for biology and zoology in school, and I realized that I really enjoyed it. And you started learning with the marine mammals, all we use is positive reinforcement. And those animals get all of their food each and every day, no matter what they do or do not do. So our challenge is, while we're using food as training, it's not the real impetus for the training. It gets their interest, and then it's up to us to make sure it's fun, and they choose it, and they like it, and they want to work at a higher level, and it's always their choice. They get, like I said, they get every social interaction, every food, every day. So all you've got is positive reinforcement. You have no halters and lead ropes. Right. Even if you did, what are you doing with it? So anyway, so that's where I learned to train, and it was all through positive reinforcement, and I quite liked it because it was all about choice, and really you consider their emotional quotient. How are they? Do they like this? Are they choosing this? Well, clearly they said, I like it or I don't. I'm leaving or I'm not. So that was great. I was actually there for 10 years, and at one point, Elizabeth Bush-Burke owned Anheuser-Busch, who owned SeaWorld at the time, and she was very big into sponsoring show jumping Grand Prix and stuff. So she was at the park, and she gave some of us trainers, I had marine mammal trainers, tickets to see a Grand Prix. And that was in Del Mar, California. So I went, and I went with a bunch of trainers, and they're all like, that was fun. And I was kind of, now all of a sudden I was like, I want to do this. Now, I didn't even really know what posting was. So I had a long way to go, but I saw some animals. I did see some animals I didn't think looked like they enjoyed it. I saw some who did, but I also knew I had tools now to help create that, and I had no idea how this was all trained. So I talked to some marine mammal trainers, or not marine mammal trainers, I'm sorry. I talked to some show jumping trainers, because I actually had some friends and connections with the Grand Prix show jumping world. So I kept asking people about horses and how they trained, and I realized it's very different from what we did with the marine mammals. Now, we were required to read, study, and be tested on university textbooks on behavior. So I understood behavior inside and out from science, because all of it is based in science. I didn't make any of it up. But so I understood the principles behind the horse training, but I'd never seen it in practical application. I'd never applied it. I'd never done it. So, but I kept hearing people saying horses aren't smart enough to learn like this. No, this isn't how it's done. You just can't do it. And I was thinking to myself, well, I can't contest that because I haven't done much with horses. But personally, with my own eyes, I have seen target trained hyenas, meerkats, hippos, rhinos, lions, tigers, bears, goldfish, sharks. So I kind of thought, well, I think if all they can do, horses could probably do it, but
surely
who knows?
God, if a shark can do it, a horse could do it.
Exactly. That's it. I was thinking, and if you don't think they're smart enough, I'm not sure why you're jumping them over 5.5-foot fences. But anyway, so then I kind of kept hearing this, no. And finally I read an article in People magazine, and it was by about a man named Tom Dorrance. So I read the article, and then I said, well, who is this man? So I called him. I got him on the phone and we chatted about horse training. I didn't really know, it wasn't until many years later I really knew who he was. But I looked, so I talked to him about the positive reinforcement training, and he was very encouraging. He said, yes, definitely do it. It turned out he had used some food in some of his training in a very rudimentary way and in certain situations, so it wasn't the systematic way that we teach today. But so he definitely was interested in it. He invited me to come work with him because he wanted to explore it with me. So, but I was like, I have to work. I can't just go,
Right.
go to strange people's branches. So I really didn't know what that invitation really could have done for a lot of people who do know him and his expertise. But what he did teach me was two things. One, move forward. Yes, 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 go forward, that I think it can work. And then two, he also taught me that there's still, after all his years and all his experience, there's still more to be learned. So that has stuck with me from that point forward, because there's people who've studied under him like, nope, that's it, this is it, and he was not that way at all. So from there I looked into riding, and I took riding lessons. So I started taking jumper lessons because I like that jumping, and so I thought that looked fun, and I took lessons and I was learning about it. I was following the farrier and the vet and learning it and riding every horse I could, soaking it up. And then I met somebody who was to be my husband and now my ex-husband, still a good guy. It was just, my own issues were yet to be resolved with my vast. But anyway, so we, life goes on. But at that point, I met him. He was trying to get a job training marine mammals. He had been a Grand Prix show jumper, had ridden with some of the best, George Morris, and he had been representing the United States. And, he had traveled around and done some things. But he was young, and he decided he wanted to train. He was giving all that up. He wanted to train marine mammals. And meanwhile, I had just started looking into horses. I was seeing him at the barn where I rode. We got together and kind of talked out the training a little bit more, and he knew a man named John Madden. And John Madden is married to Beezy Madden, and Beezy Madden, multi-Olympian gold medal. And so John Madden went to dinner with us one night, and Vinton said, tell him about the training. So I told them about the training I did with the marine mammals, and he said, he was very, very fascinated. He was like a sponge. He was just like, what? And he took home all the principles, and I sent him home with a clicker that we'd had left over from the marine mammals before, because we hadn't used clickers a long time with them. And he went home, and Beezy had a horse who came to them terrified of a riding stick. You couldn't have one around him on the ground, under saddle, with him, somebody else, nobody. And so he went home, and he called the first day and said, I not only got this horse to touch the riding stick, I can't get him to stop. Wow. And he said, if I can turn that big of a no into that big of a yes this quickly, there's a place for this in Grand Prix show jumping. Please come here, we'll start a business. So packed up, moved out there, and worked with John and Beezy for probably about a year. But after about a year, realized it's an amazing experience. Sure. I mean, he's an awesome horseman. She is too. She's very soft and a lovely rider, and so gained so much there. But also it was kind of like my lab time. So now it was time to put together how much of traditional training, how about the positive reinforcement, where does it fit in, how do we deal with things? And it was amazing. We worked with horses from Europe and horses from Argentina and horses who were from the United States, young horses, old horses, not old, but, well, yeah, some old, but, some experienced horses, some good experiences, some bad. And it was just an amazing time to really learn and put it together. But at the end of it all, I realized this isn't just for Grand Prix show jumping. This is for everybody under the sun. This is for performance issues, clearly. It's for injections, it's for feed, it's for trailer loading, it's for babies, And so that's kind of where it all started. So eventually I wrote a book and did expos and started doing clinics, and so I've worked with a number of international competitors in show jumping, dressage, driving, and eventing. But I also do work with pony club kids, backyard enthusiasts. I go to Europe quite a bit and do a lot over there as well, which also runs the gamut a bit. So it's just been really, really, really reinforcing. I feel like I'm doing what I'm supposed to do and I'm right where I'm supposed to be. So that's where I started.
That's awesome.
I'm Dr. Brian Gare, the Animal Hospital of Fayetteville and Windsor Farm, and we provide reproductive lameness services as well as general and routine procedures, and we would be happy to help you produce your next champion. And for reproductive, we offer embryo transfer, frozen semen storage, frozen semen collection, as well as cooled semen insemination, stallion collection and shipping, and likely to begin our offer of ICSI in spring of 2018. Give us a call and contact us at 910-323-1535 or look up Dr. Brian Garrett on Facebook. Looking forward to talking with you soon.
I know I've seen horses that have had real problem issues, and positive reinforcement was the only thing that worked with them. So I know that what you're saying is certainly a good program. So tell me a little bit more about how you do this.
Okay, and I think you brought up a really good point, because in the beginning people were like, well, who is this lady from California? You know, we're not really thinking she's something. Having John and Beezy on our side and singing our praises was really a huge thing.
Yes.
But the first people that came were the people that had problems, you know, because they're like, I'll do anything.
Right.
Bring whatever,
no matter how crazy,
kooky, yeah. Bring your kooky
Definitely.
stuff to me. And so that is really kind of where it started. And I was happy for that because it gave me the in to get to teach them about it. So like I said earlier, it is all based in science. So there's science books everywhere, and we're only getting more. People are getting more understanding and more educated about this, even with horse people. So it's so different than 20 plus years ago. But so it's all based in science, but the science only takes you so far. You know, if you just kind of read the science and go take it over here, you know, we don't have lab rats. You know, we have horses with real world experiences that bring different equations, and we have our own things that we bring to it. So it is, the science is great, and it gives you some guidelines and some principles, but really it's adapting it to the horse you have in front of you. I mean, I have to adapt constantly and go, this is a little different, I'm going to try this and that, and these are, okay, I'm kind of used to this type in this situation, I think this will work. So it is very much an art as much as it is the science. Right. And it is, so what it basically is, it's all based in operant conditioning. So we're going to go a little science lesson for a moment. So operant conditioning means an animal's learning to operate on their environment. So they're all doing it, regardless of whether we know it or not. And we are using it. And negative reinforcement, traditional horse training, is a part of this operant conditioning. And then there's classic conditioning, which I'll talk about in a minute. But so what we have done is taken the operant conditioning, and let me break it down a little bit more. I'm focusing on positive reinforcement because that's the part of the equation that's new, you know, that is different for people. And I got to tell you naively, when I looked into the horse world and thought, they don't know about positive reinforcement, they are going to be thrilled when they find out. That's not really been the case so far.
Right, anything new takes a while to digest.
Yes, climbing up that hill 20 years later, it is catching on, and I can have conversations now. But so there's positive reinforcement, which is the part I focus on. But then there's traditional training, which is negative reinforcement. 20 years ago, if I said that, people are like, oh, no, because we used to think negative reinforcement means you beat your horse. Positive reinforcement means you don't beat your horse. It was that simple to people. But really, positive and negative were written by science people. So positive means something is added to the equation, which increases the frequency of behavior. Negative means something is subtracted, like a negative number, from the equation, which increases the frequency of behavior. So traditional training is all about negative reinforcement, or round pen work, or whatever it might be. We tend to, you know, think about our legs. When we want the horse to go forward, we squeeze with our legs, or adjust our seat, or whatever it might be. But there's some pressure that first initiated that, and as soon as they gave us a little bit, we softened. We remove that pressure, and then, but what are they working for? The removal of that pressure. Right. So it is the subtraction which increases the frequency of behavior. The bridle is the same thing, you know, with our hands. Even the halter, you know, when they're walking, if they go over here, there's pressure on their head, and if they come back, it softens. So that's not a bad thing. That is just historically how it's done, and getting people to understand that. Before it used to be, oh, I just slow way down and really make sure people got it. Right. But now people do. And then positive reinforcement, we're adding something to the equation that the horse values. So now, instead of working to avoid something, they're working to seek something. And so it is, primarily we start with food, because food is, and the reason we choose food is one of the things they need to survive. They need food, air, sleep, water, and procreation. The procreation to survive as a species, the others to survive as an individual. They don't need to move to survive. I mean, they can live in a stall and still survive. Now, in certain environments, they, you know, it's part of their longevity, but the basic things is food, air, water, sleep. And so those things, being that they're needed to survive, their value as a motivator is hardwired into them, and it's actually unrivaled. The value is unrivaled by anything we currently have in the training system, because they, you know, think of a foal. A foal plops out, it gets air immediately, so it gets one of them, and within an hour, usually with no one helping, it's up and it's nursing.
Yes.
And, you know, so that is
And
a
then it goes to
hardwired.
sleep.
Yeah, and then it goes to sleep. A good point.
Yeah.
And so it is hardwired, and the nursing is food and water. So within the first hour of their life, they've kind of, or so, they've started to get all of those needs, and they are driven in there. So food is a really powerful motivator, but where it's got people into trouble, they haven't really understood how to systematically use food. You know, so we've all heard and seen horses that have become grabby about food. You know, we've got ourselves into problem because they're, you know, you're like, nobody hand feed horses. And yet, on the other hand, I have cured, you know, I have remedied, gotten horses over biting that are aggressive, you know, very mouthy, very bitey, all of them, all in between, with hand feeding.
Right.
You know, so it's just a matter of being aware. But I always remind people, every single time you feed a horse, you are reinforcing the behavior that's happening at the time. So if they're reaching over the fence and trying to get food, and we feed that, they're going to think, mental note, do that again. You know, but if we teach them, well, as soon as you get your head back from the fence, I'm going to feed over here where your head is, pretty soon they're like, well, this doesn't work, but this does? I'll just wait here. You know, so it's a matter of this awareness that we bring into the equation. So it is really good, it's really strong, really powerful, and now what's happening is neurobiologists are catching up with what we animal people have seen anecdotally for years, especially within the marine mammal industry is really the people who took the positive reinforcement out of textbooks and put it into the big practical application in a large setting and turned it into really a working, you know, machine. And so a lot of things I've seen for decades, you know, now,
Yeah.
I didn't know exactly what it was, but I would say, this is going to get better, these other things will get better, and we won't really address it. Not exactly sure what's going on, but believe me, it happens over and over. So now neurobiologists are actually able to figure out, when do serotonin levels rise, when does dopamine rise, what part of the brain is being used for different types of training. And so now we're getting a lot more physical science to back up what we have seen forever and ever and ever. So it's already been going on, naturally, we're just discovering it. And one of the things they discovered is, with positive reinforcement, and this is a man named Dr. Panksepp, and he found that it's a different part of the brain is used for positive reinforcement than for negative reinforcement. So negative reinforcement taps into the part of the brain that's responsible for fight or flight. So it's a little bit of I don't know what to do with it, because if they want anything to go away, it has some little tiny bit of aversive quality, or a great deal, depending. But so we tap into that part of the brain, and with positive reinforcement, we're actually tapping into the seeking system. And the seeking system is things they want, and that would be sleep, food, water, play, sex, you know, all of those are. So I thought it was interesting that it's actually a different part of the brain being used for it, and with that comes different emotions. So one of the things I like to focus on quite a bit is emotions in the training. If we get the head right, they'll do it. But if they are doing it and they don't really like it, or they're doing it because they're afraid of what will happen, their head isn't in it as much. Give it a chance. They may do it either shut down or under duress, even though they're doing it. And if they learn to do it with positive reinforcement, they have tendency to go, I want to do it. I'm here, I want to do this. And so it can be a game changer.
Hey, my name's Brian Barefoot, 11-time International Finals rodeo qualifier. I rodeoed for a living all over the country, and I've fed about every type of feed there are. When I come home, I wanted to come talk to Paul Dunn at Mill City Feeds and come up with a better feed for my performance horses. That resulted in Maximum Prime horse feed. It's got alfalfa, probiotics, beet pulp, everything that performance horse is looking for. So if you need a feed for your performance horse, come see Paul Dunn.
I try to remind people, so what's in it for your horse to say, do a, flying lead change? Not a lot.
Right. Right.
But as we put positive reinforcement in, it's something that they value, it becomes they become invested in the training and the outcome of the training. So all of a sudden you have them showing up going, what are we going to do today? What are we going to do? And they're thinking and they're problem solving, and it's very exciting, and it is just an amazing outcome. And I try to point out to people too, my goal is to not, you know, you train a canner to part with the beginning, and you know, you tell them all the good parts, but eventually you just want to be able to canner. I don't want to click and feed and target, you know, do all that stuff. So we fade it out of things. I still use food at something because I'm constantly working at something, or sometimes I just want to say thank you, that was lovely, you're still doing them really good. But I want to be sure we don't get this entitledness, we get this enjoyment of it. And one of the things that happens is once we start with the training, oftentimes if it's easy, I guess I should preface it and say this, any training can be done wrong.
Right.
You know, no matter what you're doing, and positive reinforcement is certainly one of them. And it's easy for people to make it all about the food, especially if you take it too much right from the textbooks and the science. That's like, I do this and I reinforce at this ratio, and you know, and it gets a little mechanical, and we can actually take the joy out of the training. So the training can have intrinsic joy as they learn to problem solve, and they learn to, and you see it pretty quick where they'll be like, I don't want the food, or they'll be eating their own food. And they're like, can I come out and do a session? And you're like, I just met you today, and you already want to leave your dinner, which is the same food I had, and but yet less of it, to come out and work. So there's something in it for them. And one of the that is really can be reinforcing. And I think that if we make it too mechanical, we can, one, get either over arousal, where we've kind of got them like, I want to do it for the food, and it's not really that relaxed, happy mindset, or we can get it where it is very much about the food, and if you don't have the food, I'm not going to do it. So there is a trick to it. I mean, not a trick, but I hate that term because people think it's for tricks, but there is an art to it, and so there's a systematic way we go through to be able to shape and help them just build a good reinforcement history.